The mountains of Tibet stand like silent sentinels, their peaks piercing a sky so vast it feels like the edge of eternity. It's here in 1935, in a humble village called Taktser, that a boy named Tenzin Gyatso takes his first breath. A child, born into a world of yaks and prayer wheels, unaware that destiny is already wrapping its arms around him. Far across the earth in 1943, another soul arrives. Betty Williams, born in Belfast, Northern Ireland, where the air hums not with chants, but with the low, restless murmur of a city scarred by division. Two births, two worlds, separated by oceans and ideologies, yet somehow the threads of their lives will twist together, forming a tapestry so vibrant it could outshine the sun. Oh, what a tale this is! Can you feel its pulse already tugging at your heart? Let's wander into it, slow and deep, and see where it takes us. Imagine that boy in Tibet, barely 2 years old, his small feet kicking up dust in a courtyard as a group of monks approaches, their robes fluttering like autumn leaves. They've come searching, not for just any child, but for the 14th Dalai Lama, the next in a line of spiritual leaders stretching back centuries. They set before him a test, a bell, a drum, a string of beads, objects from the past life of the 13th Dalai Lama. His tiny hands reach unerringly for what was once his, and the monks nod, their eyes alight with awe. Can you picture it? The weight of that moment, the hush that falls as a child chooses a path he can't yet comprehend. By 4, he's carried to Lhasa, the Patala palace rising like a fortress of dreams, its walls steeped in incense and mystery. There he grows, a boy with a quick grin and a restless mind, poring over sutras, debating with elders, sneaking peeks at the stars through a telescope he begged for. What must it have been like, I wonder, to be so young yet cradled by a legacy so ancient? The years roll on, and by 1950 the world shifts beneath him. China's shadow creeps over Tibet, a slow, suffocating tide that drowns a culture of prayer flags and mountain songs. At 15 he's thrust into power, a teenager facing an army with nothing but faith and a vision of peace that refuses to bend. The streets of Lhasa buzz with fear, but he stands firm, his voice steady, urging dialogue over destruction. By 1959, at 23, the breaking point comes. He flees disguised across treacherous passes, the wind biting at his face, his heart heavy with the cries of his people. He lands in India, an exile in Dharamshala, a town nestled in the foothills of the Himalayas. There, amidst the pines and the prayer wheels, he begins anew, not as a ruler, but as a voice, a beacon of non-violence that will ripple across the globe. Doesn't it stir your soul, the thought of such resilience, a man without a homeland yet a citizen of every heart? Now let's drift across the seas to Betty, oh Betty Williams, born into a Belfast where the streets are a jagged hymn of survival. Her father a butcher, her mother a keeper of a modest home. She grows up in a working-class swirl of grit and tenderness, her hands rough from labor, her spirit unbowed by the troubles that tear her city apart. She's a young woman, married, raising children, when 1976 crashes into her life like a storm breaking over a cliff. It's August 10th, a day that sears itself into her bones. She's on a street corner when it happens. A car careens out. Of control, an IRA gunman shot by soldiers, and 3 children, Joanne, John, Andrew, are caught in the wreckage, their lives snuffed out in a heartbeat, their mother left broken. Can you hear the silence that follows, the kind that screams louder than any noise? Betty's there, a witness, her soul splitting open like the earth after a quake. She doesn't turn away. She can't. She pounds on doors, her voice raw with grief and fury, rallying neighbors, strangers, anyone who'll stand with her. With Mairead Corrigan, aunt to those lost children, she births the Peace People, a movement that swells like a tide, tens of thousands marching, their footsteps a drumbeat against despair. She's no polished figurehead, she's a woman ablaze, her Belfast fire a light in the dark. These two, the Dalai Lama and Betty Williams, seem like opposites, don't they? He's a monk in saffron, a figure of quiet defiance. She's a mother in everyday clothes, a tempest of righteous passion. Yet their paths were fated to meet, not with fanfare but in the soft glow of recognition. It's the 1980s, Gabon, a humid afternoon at the Albert Schweitzer Center. Can you feel the heat, the buzz of life in the air? They're brought together by a mutual friend, a campaigner for Tibet and Aung San Suu Kyi, and there, under a sprawling tree or perhaps over a chipped teacup, they connect. Betty, with her sharp wit, finds him enchanting. His laugh, she'd later say, is childlike, a burst of joy that belies the weight he carries. "I love the Dalai Lama," she'd confess years later, her voice softening with a warmth only time can forge. He, in turn, sees in her a mirror, a woman who fights not with fists, but with a love so fierce it could move mountains. Oh, what? The moment that must have been. A spark struck between east and west, between serenity and storm, between two souls who say without words, "You are not alone." Their friendship blossoms across the years, a rare and radiant thread in the chaos of their lives. The Dalai Lama, Nobel laureate of 1989, becomes a global sage. His prize a tribute to his non-violent stand for Tibet, his talks on compassion a balm for a fractured world. He's a man of quirks. Did you know he loves gadgets, once taking apart a clock just to watch its gears spin? Betty, crowned in 1976 with Mered, is a different force. Her Nobel cry from the streets, a testament to her marches, her unscripted pleas that shook Belfast's soul. Together, they're a dance of contrasts. He, the philosopher who says, "The purpose of our lives is to be happy." She, the doer who proves it by storming into the fray. Don't you feel the magic of their union? It's as if the stars aligned to pair them, a melody and its rhythm, showing us that peace isn't a single note, but a chord struck by many hands. Let's linger on a moment that glows like a lantern. 2012, Basilicata, Italy. Betty's been dreaming since 2003, when the region faced a nuclear waste threat. She'd rallied against it, her voice a thunderclap, and proposed instead a sanctuary, the foundation city of peace for children, a haven for war's youngest. Casualties to heal, to laugh, to reclaim their childhood. Who better to bless it than the Dalai Lama? Picture him arriving, his robes a splash of color against the rolling hills, his presence a quiet storm. He speaks of hope. Every day is a new chance to change the world. And Betty stands beside him, her eyes fierce with pride and purpose. It's not just an event, it's a vow, a promise carved in earth and spirit. Can you imagine the children? There, their small faces lifted, their futures reshaped because two friends dared to dream together. That day, peace wasn't a theory. It was a place, a heartbeat, a reality you could touch. Their paths weave through Nobel Peace Laureate summits, electric gatherings where the air hums with possibility. Picture 2014, the 14th summit, a constellation of voices. Desmond Tutu's infectious chuckle, Aung San Suu Kyi's quiet resolve. The Dalai Lama, with his gentle humor, might lighten the room with a quip. Betty, with her fire, might rally them to action. These aren't just conferences, they're crucibles, where ideas forge bonds, where friendships like theirs amplify. The song. Betty's World Centers of Compassion for Children International, born in 1997, carries his echo. Compassion, he taught her, is the seed of all good. He, in turn, lifts her courage in his writings, praising those who meet darkness with light. Their bond isn't a relic, it's a river flowing through summits, through quiet exchanges, through the moments we can only imagine. What is peace, I wonder, as I sit with their story? Is it the stillness the Dalai Lama finds in meditation, the hush of a temple at dawn? Or is it the roar Betty felt in her marches, the pulse of a crowd demanding better? He once said, "World peace must develop from inner peace," a truth that feels like a lantern in the fog. She lived it differently. Peace for her was a battle, a refusal to let violence win. Together, they're a puzzle. He, the sage who heals with silence. She, the warrior who heals with sound. Don't you love how life pairs such souls, as if to say, here's the breadth of hope, from whisper to shout. Their friendship is a bridge, across cultures, across methods, across the wild, messy expanse of human longing. But let's not cast them as perfect. Oh no, they're human, gloriously so. The Dalai Lama faced doubters. Some called his non-violence a retreat, a refusal to wield sharper tools. He'd smile unruffled and keep speaking. Didn't he once say, "Anger is the ultimate destroyer of your own peace"? Betty, too, had her tempests. Her boldness made foes, her later years quieter as the spotlight faded. When she passed. In 2020, the Dalai Lama's tribute was simple. A dear friend, resolute and forthright. No fanfare, just truth. Isn't that the beauty of it? They didn't need flawlessness, they had grit, a stubborn faith that carried them through doubt, through weariness, through the nights when peace felt like a distant star. Their lives ripple outward, don't they? The Dalai Lama, now 89 in 2025, still speaks. His voice a thread of gold, his talks on joy, on the planet, on the mind's mysteries, a gift to us all. Picture him in Dharamshala, sipping tea, watching the sun paint the hills, pondering how a single act can shift a stranger's day. Betty's legacy hums in Belfast, in Basilicata, in every child her work touched. Her centers endure. Her marches live in the tales old-timers tell. Together they're a web, linking laureates, dreamers, anyone who dares believe in a gentler tomorrow. A reminder that peace isn't a solo act, but a chorus, growing with every voice that joins. Let's dream a scene. Why not? It's the 1990s. A summit's edge, a fire crackling under a starlit sky. Betty's nursing a drink, her laugh cutting through the chill, teasing him. "You're too calm, Your Holiness. Don't you ever want to roar?" He chuckles, eyes twinkling. "And you, Betty, roar enough for us both." Do they talk of fear, of Tibet's fading songs, of Belfast's lingering scars? Or do they share hopes of a world where children don't know war's bite? I see them falling silent, the fires glow on their faces, their bond a language beyond words. What is friendship, if not this? A space where masks drop, where two souls so different find a shared beat. Their story begs us to dig deeper. Really, dig. The Dalai Lama loves an old Buddhist tale. A monk, asked why he meditates, says, "To water the seeds of peace in me." Simple yet vast, isn't it? It's a call to tend our own souls, to root out bitterness, to plant kindness. Betty's creed was louder. She'd say, "If you see a wrong, fix it, or scream until it's fixed." Hers was a piece of upheaval, a demand that the world wake up. Together they ask, how do we live this? How do we balance the quiet mending of self with the loud mending of the world? Their answers differ, but their question unites them and us. Their legacy isn't a museum piece, it's alive, breathing, tugging at our hearts. Think of a Tibetan girl in exile, clutching his words like a lifeline. Think of a Belfast boy, now grown, who marched with Betty and still fights for peace. Think of Basilicata's children, their laughter a testament to two friends who refused to let war win. Their work wasn't perfect, whose is, but it was real, raw, radiant. When I close my eyes, I see them. Betty's fire blazing, the Dalai Lama's calm grounding, a duo that says peace isn't a gift, it's a choice, a labor, a love we build together. Let's stretch this into the stars because their story deserves it. Imagine them as constellations. Betty, a fiery Orion, sword raised against despair. The Dalai Lama, a steady Cassiopeia, guiding us through the dark. Their light doesn't fade. It reaches us in every act of grace, every stand against cruelty. They whisper, "You can change this." Their friendship isn't just theirs, it's ours, a torch passed through time, a flame we're dared to carry. So what will we do with it? Let it flicker or fan it into a blaze that warms the world. Their lives are a dialogue with the infinite, aren't they? The Dalai Lama, still here in 2025, his voice a thread of light, his love of tinkering. Did you know he once fixed a radio just for fun? A spark of his endless wonder. Betty, gone since 2020, her echoes loud in every heart she touched. Her stories still swapped over pints in Belfast pubs. Together they say, peace isn't a dream, it's a doing, a daring, a dance. The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others, Gandhi said. And oh, how they lived that. Their pact was action and soul, a vow to keep moving no matter the weight. Let's revel in their quirks, the Dalai Lama's delight in a ticking watch, Betty's knack for a tale that'd make you laugh till you cried. They weren't icons, on pedestals. They were people, flawed, fierce, who chose light over shadow. Isn't that the truest courage, not perfection, but persistence? Their story could fill oceans, every summit a wave, every letter a current, every glance a tide. But let's not just tell it, let's feel it. Feel the bite of Tibet's wind as he fled, the heat of Belfast's pavement as she marched. Feel their bond, their defiance, their hope. They didn't just exist, they dared us to rise, and oh, how I pray we will. Theirs is a song of peace, sung in duet, one soft, one bold, ringing across the years. So, tell me, as their light bathes, first, what note will you sing? What peace will you chase, not someday, but now?